Okay, I didn't see it there. Guys, I'm about to teach you about mechanical mixtures and solutions and all the exciting things that come with being a mixture. So let's check it out. First thing, number one, that we're gonna learn about is something called a pure substance. Pure substances are like elements from the periodic table. Things like nitrogen and carbon and phosphorus, all that stuff is pure because it's only an element. The only thing in my house that I can find that's pure right now is this beautiful aluminum foil. I know that aluminum is on the periodic table, so it's a pure substance. So you can find pure substances in your house too if you got aluminum. Kind of cool. If you have distilled water in your house, you know that distilled water is pure. There's nothing else in it but just H2O. H2O is also a pure substance. Same thing as salt. I know it's true, but that's how it is. Pure substances, one thing, one form, periodic table. That's what a pure substance is. You can't break it up into anything else. But mixtures, that's where things are at. The first types of mixtures that we're going to talk about are mechanical mixtures. It's when like two things get together and they mix together. Sometimes you can see the different parts of mixtures, sometimes you can't. In mechanical mixtures, you can, and that makes them my favorite. See, mechanical mixtures are called heterogeneous. That means that they have different parts, like cheesies, sun chips, Doritos, and pretzels. Ain't nobody got time for those. So here's the thing. Mechanical mixtures, you can see the different parts. Other types of mechanical mixtures are these babies right here. Look at, they're all different colors, even though they're technically the same thing. Maybe a better example is this candy. Different types of stuff inside of there. But mechanical mixtures are things that you can see that are different. Other examples are like carrots and mixed vegetables where you have like corn and peas and all that kind of stuff. You have a whole bunch of different forms of different things, and you can visibly see them in the mechanical mixture. That's what makes that a mechanical mixture. Other types of mixtures are called homogeneous mixtures, which means that there's only one thing that you really can see. It seems like there's only one thing there, but there actually might be more going on. So the first type of thing is called a solution. And solutions are awesome. We drink them every day. So solutions are when we're able to mix things together, but it looks like one thing. So example would be this beautiful A&W root beer. When we open this baby, we know what's inside of it. There's a lot of sugar, there's color, it's brown, and the other thing about it is that it has gas inside of it. It's a solution. You couldn't tell about all those things once this kind of goes nice. The solution is beautiful, and you're able to see sort of straight through it. It looks like one substance, maybe one mixture, once this foam goes away. Other types of mixtures are coffee. Things that like you would want to make a coffee. Let's do it right now.
It's like, they've made a few of these, I think. Ew.
So, see that we've made a few of these coffees, but here's the deal. When we look at it, we see that coffee is brown and you can see through it. It's a perfect example of a solution. And Shorter will probably drink this later because it's her favorite thing. Back to the kitchen. The next type of mixture that we're gonna look at are these things called suspensions. And suspensions have floaties, so that's what you have to remember. The word suspension means that something is floating and that you can see it, and it's actually two parts, but there's something floating on the top. It's hard to find suspensions, and I don't have any orange juice with pulp. That's the best suspension, but that's disgusting, so I don't have any in my fridge. So I'm gonna make you a suspension right now. I can make a suspension by using water and pepper. See, what happens is the pepper is floating on the very top. And so that's what a suspension is. You got floaties on the top. Floaties are gross. That's why people like things like, I don't know, that like orange juice with pulp. But I don't really tend to like drinking floaties, but that's what suspensions are, things that are floating. Other types of floaties are like when mud suspends in water, it floats. That's what a suspension is. The last type of mixture that we're going to talk about are colloids, and they are my favorite because it's a weird word. Colloids are like squishy, gross, kind of thick, pasty things like toothpaste or like ketchup. When we look at ketchup, we know there's lots in it, but it looks like one thing. That is a colloid. It's thick and it's pasty and it's hard to see through, but we know there's a whole bunch of particles inside of there that makes it thick. Another example of a colloid is this mayo. Mayo is also thick and it has that thick consistency. So like paint or anything like that. Those are what colloids are. All of the particles inside are together and very closely packed, but you can't see through them. And a way to tell if it's a colloid is if you can't shine a flashlight all the way through it, usually you know it's a colloid. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of types of mixtures. The first category of mixtures is the pure substances, and pure substances are all about elements and compounds. Compounds are things like H2O. You put elements together and you make them one thing. There's only two types of pure substances, elements and compounds. But when you get to mixtures, there's a whole bunch of types of mixtures, and we just went over them right now. Solutions, mechanical mixtures, suspensions, and colloids. You need to know what all those things are, and you can find them all in your kitchen. And you can eat them. Thanks for joining me today. Well, guys, back in the office, making my Slurpees in my safe Slurpee cup. My solution, my root beer solution that I have, because you can only see it just looks like one thing. That's what it is. Root beer Slurpee time. It's a good time. Anyways, so back into the classroom here, we need to just take a look at the notes. We need to take a look at what all this stuff is and just make sure that we understand it so that we can solve the next types of assignments that we have. This stuff we learn in grade 9 too, and it's tested on the PAT, so it's good to have a really good familiarity of what mixtures and pure substances actually are all about. So checking out into the notes, pure substances are made up of only one kind of matter. That's why when we looked at that, we looked at the aluminum foil, because it was just one thing. It's always about what's on the periodic table of elements. So if you ever saw something on the periodic table, then basically what's going to happen is you're going to understand that stuff like copper and nickel and iron, all that stuff, they're pure substances. They're only made up of one type of atom. It only makes up those things, and you can't separate them. So here's some examples in your notes of other pure substances: sugar, distilled water, and aluminum foil. Why is something like sugar that has a chemical formula of C12H22O11 something that's pure? Well, it's called a compound. Compounds are made up of elements from the periodic table, and those are also pure. So stuff as simple as H2O is a pure substance. It's when you start to mix things together and mix substances to bring them into each other, that's when you don't get things that are as pure. So pure substances, periodic table, can't break it down anymore. It's one type of atom. Moving into something called a mixture, then we have these two different types of things that are combined together, and each substance keeps its individual properties. So you're not losing any chemical properties when we mix them. The first one we looked at was the mechanical mixture. And so as you can see here, they're sometimes called heterogeneous mixtures. And you're going to have to know that word. Heterogeneous means mixing one or more than one thing together. And so when you get a mechanical mixture, it says here that you can see the different parts. So that's why when I was mowing down the chips, you can see it. Homogeneous mixtures make up the rest of the mixtures, and so that's important. And so homogeneous means that you can't see the different substances that make up the mixture. Sort of like my Slurpee. You just know that it's just root beer. That's all that it is. But you know that inside of it, root beer is made up of a whole bunch of awesome things like sugars and some different types of dyes and all that stuff. But you can only see it as looking like root beer. And so solutions look like one substance. Sugar and coffee is a good example. The last one here that we're looking at this page is suspensions. So suspensions are when you look at floaties, and so they're held within a substance. And if you leave the suspension undisturbed, its parts are going to separate out. So you can actually see the floaty grossness and the normal juicy juice. The last one for real is the colloid, and the colloid was that thick, pasty, sort of like, I don't know, like just texture that it has, right? Toothpaste, paint, things like that. They're tiny particles and they're so small that they don't separate out, but they're actually all put together like the mayo. Another example is milk here. So when we look at this table right here, it's extremely important because it shows us how all matter in the universe is broken down. Matter is broken down into two things, pure substances and mixtures. Mixtures are broken down into 4 parts, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and pure substances are broken down into 2. Elements and compounds make up pure substances, and we have solutions, colloids, suspensions, and heterogeneous mixtures, which is mechanical mixtures, make up any type of actual mixture. So after you understand all of that, you're going to be pros, and you're ready to go and do the next assignment, and you're ready to understand what we're going to do next. So I'll just drink my Slurpee, my safe Slurpee, and until next time, peace out.